Welcome back to the Kang Gang Pod. This is episode number 56. We took a little bit of a hiatus, but we are so back.
How back are we?
And we back, and we back, and we back. It feels good. It feels good to be sitting in these chairs again. God, I've missed this room. Oh, man.
Well, technically, you live here.
I do. I see it every day. But it's different when you're here with me. Johnny is not here today. He is on a vacation. He was in Anguilla. Look it up on the map. It's somewhere in the Caribbean. He was there, and now he's in New York, and he will be coming back soon. But we had to get a podcast in tonight because the NBA Finals start tomorrow. In this episode, we're going to talk about some recent Sacramento Kings news and obviously the NBA Finals. So first, we got to talk about the Sacramento Kings because we haven't talked about the Kings at all this offseason. You know, RT, Johnny, and I, we've been on our press tour. We were on our press run. You know, getting all of our interviews out. You know, that was very fun. Deuce Mo, Jarabshire, Jason Vu, Steven Tanaka. I mean, we were having a blast with all of those.
I think there's more to come too. So don't stay tuned.
Whoa, RT's dropping some. Hey, listen up.
Spoiler alert. There's more coming. So, like a Tribe Called Quest, we're on our press award tour right now. That's what we're on right now.
RT is so right. We have a lot of awesome guests lined up for the summertime, but we had to just, get back to our roots, where we started, and just talk about the one thing we love most, the Sacramento Kings, which have made some recent coaching acquisitions. Finally, we have Doug Christie has finally filled out his coaching staff. We have, obviously, head coach Doug Christie, assistant coaches Mike Woodson, beloved Bobby Jackson, Chris Darnell, Mike Miller, and head of player development Paul Jesperson. So finally, we could, go into the season with a full brand new coaching staff. What are your initial thoughts of the hires?
Yeah, I will say the one thing that is the biggest takeaway with all of the hires that we've had so far, right, is they are definitely getting a lot older. They have a lot of coaching experience, right? We talk about Mike Woodson. That is a coach that coached for the Knicks for a while, was a head coach for Indiana recently, and now is an associate head coach, which is the main assistant coach. A lot of guys that you also see on here are Scott Perry hires, right? And that is a huge thing that is there. Mike Miller was an associate head coach for the Knicks in the 2019-2020 season, took over as an interim head coach. So a lot of these guys that you're seeing are hires from Scott Perry. And I think it's very interesting to see this because, one, what it tells me is that Vivek is staying out of the way. He's letting Scott Perry do his job. He's letting Scott cook, whatever you want to call it, because what he's doing right now is building a coaching staff that has a lot of experience to help usher in Doug Christie as a new head coach. Not just an interim head coach anymore, but just a brand new first full season as his full tenured head coaching gig.
So is this going to be the first time in Vivek's ownership that he is actually going to take the back seat? That is the biggest question, because if he does so, I remember we had a conversation with someone who will not be named, but he was saying that when you look at all these owners in the NBA, that he was going down the line. He's like, do you know the owner of this franchise? Do you know the owner of we'll say it out loud. Do you know the owner of the Knicks? Do you know the owner of the Pelicans? Do you know the owner of the, he was just going down the line, and we're like, no. And he's like, and then he was saying it with, the good teams. Like, you don't know who these owners are because they are staying out of the way and letting the basketball people make those decisions. Everyone in the NBA world knows who our owner is because he sits courtside, which I have no problem with. I mean, it's your team. You can sit wherever you want. But it's just the interference that he has for over a decade now. If this is the time to step away, this is the most important time in our franchise for him to do that. So, like you said, they seem like these are Scott Perry guys. I mean, yeah, Mike Woodson was the head coach of the College of Indiana.
Indiana Hoosiers,
not the Pacers.
To clarify. No, Rick Carlisle's still there. We'll get into the Pacers later, but
Bobby Jackson was assistant with the 76ers. Obviously, that was more of like a Doug Christie hire, you could tell, obviously. Chris Darnell was the head coach of a G League team. Paul Jesperson is from the Atlanta Hawks, and Mike Miller was an assistant for the Wizards. So yeah, like you said, all of them do have a connection to Scott Perry. So it sounds like him and Doug actually were the two that were making these coaching decisions, not getting outside influence from Vivek, because we all were hearing that during the Mike Brown hiring, Vivek wanted I'm forgetting his name, Mark
Jackson, yeah.
So like, at least we didn't hear any of that. We didn't hear any interference yet. So this might be a good sign. So we'll see. We'll see.
I think this is it's a good thing for sure. I would be very curious to see, because a lot of the guys, Mike Miller was part of Scott Perry's tenure as a Knick, right? He served as an interim head coach before Mike Woodson was one of the assistant coaches during the next hire of there. Because you got to think about it. Scott Perry was there until 2023. And that was until Leon Rose basically took over, right? So when you're watching the Knicks, what they're doing now, that Scott Perry was there from like 2017 to 2023 and was making those little, moves, obviously. He traded away Porzingis. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Scott Perry does as a GM. And I think that seeing him develop that coaching staff for Doug Christie as someone that can be serving as mentors towards Doug Christie is very important. We always talk about like players receiving mentorship from older players like DeMar DeRozan's and the Jonas Valanciunas and the Vince Carters that we've had, the George Hills, but nobody really talks about the mentorship of coaches, especially beginning coaches, because a lot of times we're entering a new era of coaches where coaches are basically coming from assistant coaches. There's no longer these guys like the Mike Budenholzers that are getting jobs. There's no longer these Frank Vogels that are getting jobs immediately, right? Mike Brown still doesn't have a job as a head coach. And all of a sudden, coaches are going younger, right? And it's important to have these veteran coaches that are there almost as like guiding mentors towards them, because that will allow those younger coaches to really flourish and then really do it. You see what Mark Daigneault is doing right now with the Thunder. He's probably one of the youngest coaches in the NBA. JJ Redick has an outstanding coaching staff in the Lakers. So it's a recipe for success, and I think the Kings are definitely taking that route where they're providing Doug Christie with a lot of coaches that have a lot of coaching experience.
Yeah, you're seeing it's a very common theme in today's NBA. You're seeing all of the older coaches kind of getting pushed out, and like big news with New York after Tom Thibodeau has been an incredible coach for them for the past five seasons. Out of the 4 of those seasons have all been playoff appearances. 51 season this year, Eastern Conference Finals. Second round last year. I mean, they were just climbing the ladder, and then even them, they're going a separate direction as well. Mm-hmm. And you're seeing it like even like Mike Malone. Mike Malone, you haven't been hearing his name in coaching hires. It's just so interesting that all the head coaches are all these young guys, and then they're surrounding the young coaches with the veterans, which I think is, yeah, you said it, the recipes for success. So I'm really hoping that these guys are going to be really helpful for Doug's development as a head coach, because that's what Doug needs. And like, obviously Doug, this job means everything to him. And I think putting like veteran guys around him is only going to help us succeed and him succeed in his young career as a head coach. So let's see what happens. But yeah, like it's so crazy that all of these coaches that we've been so used to seeing, like they might not be around for much longer. Mm-hmm. So
it's a new era.
It's a new era of basketball. You're seeing it, like the biggest example is Greg Popovich stepping down from coaching. And then instead of, bringing in another guy to like take over the Greg Popovich role, they're trusting their young interim coach to take over. And then he is probably going to have the best leadership around him to help grow him into the next Popovich. So it sounds like they're trying to like grow these young coaches into these long-lasting legends in the coaching game.
I agree.
But speaking of legends in the coaching game, we have to say our condolences, because Jay Triano, Coach Jay, is no longer going to be a part of this next year's coaching staff. We loved Jay Triano. He's an amazing coach. He's going to do incredible things in the NBA. He's probably going to get hired up really soon. Because veteran leadership matters in the NBA. So, he's no longer going to be with the Kings anymore, but we hosted our first ever Sacramento Kings Trivia Night at Mojo's. For all the people listening in Sacramento, it was an incredible event. We had over 60 people participate, which was awesome. And Jay Triano, the legend, showed support and showed love for the event. He is a local to Mojo's, and he is always there. And when he found out about the Kings Trivia Night, he donated some of his Kings, like his really nice like Nike apparel, gave it to us to give as prize gifts for the winners of Trivia Night. And everyone gave him a standing ovation. He was waving to everyone in the room, and it was awesome. So shouts out Jay Triano, and we're excited to see where your next coaching job lands you.
And, speaking of Trivia Nights, because the first one was super awesome.
A smashing success, by the way. We did not think it was going to be that.
And we just want to say, one, thank you to all of those that came. Would not be possible without any of you guys there. We've had people that drove up from LA.
Yeah,
7
that was just
hours.
crazy. Shouts out Patrick Casey.
Shout out Patrick Casey, a real one. 7 hours just to be at this event. I mean, that is true dedication, and we're just very lucky to have such an incredible fan base, not only in Sacramento, but like within our podcast, and to just seeing a lot of people just come out to this event, even just people that we even never met before, and just getting to have them a chance to, talk to them. I think that was a really, really special moment.
It was just so much fun.
It was just so much fun.
Everyone, like the feedback we got on the event was so great. Everyone had a really, really fun time. Everyone was so clever with their trivia Kings related
so
team names. Shouts out Nick Rocks for taking the first place. So with that being said,
drum roll, please.
You're the drummer.
That's right.
We are announcing our second Kings Trivia Night, which will be on June 25th at Mojo's at 7:30. So 3 weeks from today. 3 weeks from today. Follow us on Instagram. We'll be promoting the event like we always do, but it's going to be a very, very fun time. So you're going to want to be there.
Yes. And this will also be during the draft, by the way, during the first round of the NBA draft. So somehow, some way, if the Kings manage to get a first round pick and we somehow trade up, that's more of an excuse to come.
Yeah. So get there early. It starts at 7:30, but get there at 5 with us. Watch the draft. Enjoy some drinks. Enjoy some great food. And then we'll meander into trivia night. So that's what the plan is. But yeah, like RT said, there might be an avenue for the Kings to end up drafting in the first round, because today there was a tweet that was released that the Kings are going to try and move at least one of their big three, Domantas Sabonis, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach LaVine, before or during the offseason or before this upcoming trade deadline. RT has the tweet right here.
I do, and I want to thank Mike A. Scotto, who works for Hoops Hype and is a part of US Today Sports, and he tweeted this today saying, looking ahead to the offseason, rival NBA executives are monitoring the trio of Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan with the belief that Sacramento will explore the possibility of trading at least one of their players either this offseason or before the trade deadline in February.
So that is some massive news. Obviously, we kind of saw this coming as Kings fans. We all are assuming that it's going to be DeMar DeRozan, but they're saying at least one. So that could mean...
It could mean a lot of things.
It could mean more are on the table. So it's really interesting because, this offseason has the potential to be one of the craziest off seasons in NBA history, because there's so much movement that is about to happen. Obviously, Phoenix is, they are lowering their asking price on Kevin Durant. Giannis Antetokounmpo, although he has not asked out yet, every GM is probably knocking at the door in Milwaukee about Giannis' situation. And then the fact that the San Antonio Spurs got the second overall pick this year just drives me insane, because not only is it a team in the West, but they have Wemby, Fox, and then potentially Giannis if they decide to go that way and trade for him. The Kings are going to have no room to compete in the West. So
I'm surprised you didn't even say this either. We're forgetting the team that has the number one pick out of all of them.
Oh, don't even get me started.
Yeah. And
don't even get me started.
That's what I'm saying. And that's another team that could potentially leapfrog us, So Yeah.
No, that will. The
No,
Mavericks
no,
will
no,
leave
no.
progress.
I don't know because Kyrie's
you're
not going to
right.
come back
Yeah.
until January. So we'll see. And that team kind of, if they without Anthony Davis, they didn't look that great because they were pretty depleted.
He's healthy.
He's healthy, but you never know what you're going to get.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
Anyways,
So,
I don't want to jump into them.
yeah, we don't want to spend the whole podcast talking
We're
about
not a Dallas Mavericks podcast.
But it's just, can we just like move all of these guys out the West? Because, so all these stars that are being talked about going to potentially move, like if they just keep coming to the West, it's going to be a near impossible route for the Kings to, climb up. So, yeah, that's where the Kings are at. So I want to ask you, RT, Sabonis, DeRozan, LaVine. Do you predict that we will move one of them this offseason?
My answer is yes. And I think the one person that would most likely get moved is DeMar DeRozan. I think to me, you kind of have to look at it from multitude of ways, right? You kind of have to look at the pecking order, right? There's Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant as like your top two prizes that are in the offseason that are asking for trade requests, right? But there are some solid consolation prizes that are there. And one of them, in my opinion, is DeMar DeRozan, who averaged...
I think that's a great... just look at the stats from this past season. He had a great, individual year.
Yeah, a great individual year. He averaged at least over 22 points a game this year. That's pretty productive, and that's a good enough for a team that's going to need scoring and that just had a breakout year and is looking to be like, hey, these young pieces are not doing it for us. We need a veteran scorer. I think DeMar DeRozan would fit really well on specific teams like the Rockets this past year.
There's so many teams that like you could plug and play DeRozan on, I think. Even though DeRozan's not really known as a plug and play guy, we were hoping he would be that for us. But for a young team that just needs a pure scorer and like veteran leadership, I don't see that, and that's why all of these GMs are looking at our situation because they're like they see what DeMar DeRozan could bring to their team. So I agree with you. I really think DeRozan will be moved in the offseason before the season even starts. But the question is like, will it happen on draft night? Will it happen? That's what's interesting because like there's a lot of contending teams that have lottery picks where maybe you could throw a DeRozan package to get that pick. Like if that's something the Kings want to do, like go younger. Obviously younger in the NBA is the most it's very desirable. So we'll see if that's something that they try to facilitate. But even if they don't trade it for a draft pick, there's so many other teams that are probably going to be sending us offers. So it's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, and I also think this draft class is also pretty deep in terms of point guards, right? And believe it or not, the team needs a point guard. So I wouldn't mind, if the first option is, say, let's go get a point guard for the future and get a young point guard that can learn from it. That could have the keys to our offense in a way, work with Sabonis, be a backcourt member with Zach LaVine. I'm all for it. There's a lot of avenues that the Kings have an opportunity with. And once the draft gets closer, I feel like a lot of us are going to have a clearer mind of like what's really going to happen with the Kings in about 3 weeks. So to me, I'm kind of just leaving all possibilities open at this point and seeing what's going to be the best move for the Kings going forward. In my opinion, I do think trading DeRozan and somehow getting your way into the lottery would be a really good thing for the Kings because I feel like they definitely, in the past, I know that Monte McNair is now gone, but Monte McNair did a really good job of drafting players that would fit the mold, right? Tyrese Halliburton, he drafted, but he was able to flip, I know. We're going
to talk about him
We'll save him later, but then Keegan Murray, Keegan Murray is a solid starter on our team. Devin Carter, still a player in a project. We'll see. Obviously, he'll play in the summer league this year, so we'll see like how he does, but I think to me, it's going to be interesting to see what is going to be there. In my opinion, if I trade into the lottery and get a shot to get a young guy in a first round pick that could fit, I like Derek Queen a lot. Derek Queen from Maryland could be a really, really good player that could be available. And if the Kings somehow pull the trigger,
What's he projected?
projected 10th. Like he's projected 10th. He's projected
Which
6th.
is the Rockets pick.
It
It's
is the
10th
Rockets pick,
which
yeah.
RT has a theory. Well, he's speculating. His hypothesis, his goal is to trade DeRozan, get that 10th pick from Houston, and draft his boy from the Terrapins.
Because I think Derek Queen does so much. Obviously, we'll have a draft episode where we'll be talking a lot about like prospects that we really like if we get a first round pick.
Yeah. But also something to think about is the 2026 draft is also a pretty stacked draft year as well. So it's like, do the Kings, go the route of if they trade Sabonis in this offseason or at the trade deadline? Because if you trade Sabonis, it's got to be a full rebuild. You can't, retooling would be DeRozan, moving off of DeRozan, maybe moving off of a Levine. But Sabonis, he's the hub of the offense. So, you trade him, then it's starting fresh. So if they do decide to do that, then we would control our pick. Well, we control all of our picks in the future. So we would control next year's pick. So if we don't have that good of a year, we'd probably fall back into the lottery. But it's just so sad that we even have to have these conversations of falling back into the lottery.
I know, especially after our Beam Team year. But like life, this
is just what it is. So it's you can't. We try not to dwell too much on the past. That's why we're called the Kang Gang Pod. We like talking about special Kangs. We find the best moments out of those years, no matter what. And I don't want to be rooting for a tank or because it's been basically our whole life.
Well,
so
the thing is though, people say the Kings are going to be in a constant rebuild, but when you think about it, what is there to build with the Kings? Right? Because when you go through rebuild and have been through a 16-year playoff drought, it's not a rebuild. You're not building anything.
That was not a rebuild. Everyone keeps calling it the 16-year rebuild.
It was never a rebuild.
It was just, it was swing and a miss, swing and a miss. It was not, we weren't rebuilding then. We were just failing. Then. But now it's we have so much talent, so many pieces, and we do have some very solid young pieces. So when I hear people saying we got to move off of Keegan Murray, people are so quick to jump ship. It's easy. It's easy to jump. To be attached to a player because they have promise and then go off of him. As a Kings fan, it's very easy to do that. But we've seen it happen too many times. Look how great Davion Mitchell's playing in Miami. Look how even saying his name out loud just makes me sad. Tyrese Halliburton. Look at how incredible he is playing in Indiana. Giving up on Keegan, I'm not ready to do that. I say embrace the young pieces on the team and build around them, because although Devin Carter, he's a work in progress, we all know that. Keon Ellis and Keegan, those are some great young pieces. I don't know. I just hope we do not find a way to move off of them. That would destroy this city if we do that, because Keon Ellis, I saw some NBA analysts did a free agent ranking. They put him at number 10. Keon is getting on notice. So obviously we have a very, great situation with this contract where we're able to match anything, or I forgot what it is.
Yeah, it's a restricted free
agent.
Agent.
So it's we're going to have Keon for a long time, but it's that type of player is worth a lot in the NBA. And yeah, we could go on and on and on about how good these guys on our team are, but realistically, what Scott Perry has said is we need a point guard and we need wing depth, which has been we've always known that we've needed a reservation at wing stop, but the point guard thing is just so funny to me because we've had incredible. I'll say it one more time. Incredible point guards, and now we have to go point guard searching, which is just hilarious. But I'm very curious about the wing depth because I'm seeing Herb Jones being talked about in trade talks, which is very interesting because I'm a big New Orleans Pelicans wing guy. Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, those guys I feel would do wonders on our team. So if we could, I don't know. There's just so many options, but I don't know. I'm very curious to see what direction Scott decides to go down because
I'm curious too. I'm not
get the popcorn ready. Get the popcorn ready.
Just get it ready because the show is coming up very soon. It is 3 weeks away, and the show starts when the NBA draft starts. Its show might even start before it starts this week, too. Let's not forget this. I will take you back to 2017, everybody. In 2017, the Boston Celtics had the number 1 pick. And then they decided to trade down with the Philadelphia 76ers to the number 3 pick. They did a pick swap, which was actually supposed to be the Sacramento Kings pick. But in turn, what happened was the Boston Celtics traded down and got Jason Tatum. The Philadelphia 76ers drafted Markelle Fultz. That was a trade that happened 2 weeks before the drafts even started. So the show might even start before the draft is. So
yeah, it's
I'm just saying, just get your popcorn, get your icy ready, just have a seat, kick your feet up, and just watch the craziest offseason and draft, I think, in NBA history.
As an NBA fan, as a Kings fan, as anyone, like, it's impossible not to be loving the state of the NBA right now. With all of these player movements and with this NBA Finals, this has been one of the best NBA playoff runs I've seen in a while. The upsets, the teams that you would not expect going this far. The number 1 seeds getting knocked out, except for OKC, obviously. But you know what I'm saying. It's just been such a treat to watch, and that's the perfect segue into the NBA Finals matchup between Tyrese Halliburton and the Indiana Pacers and Shai Gilgeous, free throw merchant Alexander, and the Oklahoma City Thunder. RT, my question for you is, what is your prediction for this series? I want you to give me who's winning and in how many games.
Oh boy. See, I came in when I first found out the finals matchup. My first gut initial instinct was Thunder in 5. Because I just think defensively, this team historically defensively is up there with some of the best NBA teams that play defense, period.
People are saying that the Thunder might be the best defensive team ever in NBA history.
And it's not surprising, right? And Lou Dort, you look at the 4 guys that can really, really play defense. There's 5 that can really play defense. Lou Dort, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, Alex Caruso, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Cason
Wallace can play defense. Aaron Wiggins, another 3-and-D guy.
Jalen Williams, the other Jalen Williams.
The taller Jalen Williams.
Yes, like they are an unbelievable team, and that is what scares me for the future of the West. So that's why, I mean, sorry, we're going back now. It's like, do the Kings even want to even try right now? Because look what the monster that is forming in Oklahoma right now.
There ain't no love in Oklahoma, I'll tell you that right now.
Not even
My
close.
gosh. But I will say another thing too. It is crazy that Lou Dort and Jalen Williams made the all defensive teams, and those 2 guys are not even the best defenders on their team. Chet Holmgren would have been a lock for the defense, or probably top 3 for defensive player of the year.
Hartenstein too, dude.
Hartenstein, yeah. But
everyone.
And Alex Caruso is probably the best guard defender. Shut down Jokic in a Game 7 alone.
I was about to say, he single-handedly is the reason why the Thunder have moved on.
And Hartenstein too. Those 2 are huge.
And I mean to say that, like, the Oklahoma City's game plan, they never had Caruso on Jokic in 1 through 6. And then he decides to throw the wild card of Caruso on Jokic. And the way he was guarding him, unreal. Like,
yeah.
So they are going to be, so yeah, you think OKC in 5.
That was going to be my gut reaction at first. But
okay.
But I will go over to the Indiana side because I do think it's fair to talk about Indiana, right? Indiana is the deepest team in the East, without a question. I think they're also a top 5 deep roster team in the NBA in general. You look at what the team really did. It's almost like the same build. Like, they just have a similar build to what the OKC Thunder do.
I was going to say that is the perfect matchup for each other, because if it was OKC versus Knicks, Thunder in 4.
Yeah, Thunder in 4.
I think Thunder would have. I think
Thunder in 1.
I think it would just be a clean sweep, just the way. But if there's one team that could play the way that OKC does, it's the Indiana Pacers, because the way they push the ball, the way the engine of Tyrese Halliburton, where the second a shot goes in, just throw it ahead, and it's basically a fast break every time. That might cause OKC a little bit of trouble. I don't even want to say trouble because the OKC Thunder, but it's just that
it's gonna get them like noticing.
Yeah, it's just like no other team in the East. I don't think there's no other team outside of the Thunder that play at the speed of the Pacers. But the one thing that is obviously on the OKC side is that the Pacers defense is nowhere near as good. I mean, and the Pacers have a great defense. Mm-hmm. Like the way Nembhard and the way Nesmith pick up full court every time they put that pressure, they're going to try their best on Shea. But as a team, OKC's defense, I picked that over Indiana.
I mean, top to bottom, like OKC is just such a complete team. But I will say, though, one thing that is really true about the Indiana Pacers is they take care of the ball super, super well. They have the highest assist to turnover ratio and the point of margin. If you look at like kind of a XY graph where the X portion is like the point margin and then the Y graph is the assist to turnover ratio, the bottom left teams are like kind of like right over here. This is kind of my graph. I know it looks a little bit weird on the opposite side, but stay with me. These were like the Knicks where they turned the ball over and their point margin was not great. Then you have teams right above that that have higher point margins, but they're a little bit less turnover. That's where like OKC is. And that Denver series probably did a lot of that for that reason. But if you look at the far top right, all the way top right, that's where the Indiana Pacers are. One, they take care of the ball super duper well. Tyrese Halliburton he had a triple-double performance where he didn't turn the ball over. And that was in game 3.
And he's very familiar with not turning over the ball. Like if you look at this whole season, it's probably in the double digits of games where he's had 0 turnovers. Like it's a very common thing for him. I think they said 14 times.
Yeah.
It's crazy how well he takes care of the ball and because he plays kind of reckless.
Yeah.
He literally looks like Steve Urkel out there. I'm not even kidding. Like when he's dribbling, he looks like Steve Urkel when he went in the Family Matters episode where he went up. He literally looks like that. You see that meme, but
yes,
you put them side by side. That's how he plays. But the type of passes he's throwing, dude, to not turn over the ball with his specific style of play is crazy.
And the whole team doesn't turn over the ball either. Yeah. And their whole point margin is why they've blown out teams convincingly and have came back in games convincingly. They are able to cause so much havoc defensively too. We've seen it 3 times this year, 1 in each round.
Yeah.
A closeout game in game 5 where they were down 7 in OT with about 40 seconds left. Win that game. Game 2 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're down 7 with a minute left. Come back and win that. Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Down 14 with 5 minutes left.
No, it was 2 minutes, I think.
What 2 minutes? No, because they were down.
They were
like
down
9.
like 17 with 5. And
they were down 9 with.
No, I think they were down 4. Sorry, down 14 with 5 minutes. Or no, I think it was down 17 with 5 minutes. Down 12 with 2.
Maybe
something crazy.
Yeah, something crazy. But they tie that game up, and then they win in overtime.
They keep topping their performances, and like it's just it's so sad. But you have to give the flowers when they are due. It just sucks that we had him homegrown and he wanted to be here. We'll get into the feelings in a second, but the way they play, that's why I think you can't count them out. Even though how good they are defensively, how good they are, how resilient they are, the way they've come back in miraculous, near impossible ways, it's hard to count them out. I'm going to say I think it's going to be Thunder in 5, but it would not surprise me if the Pacers could find a way to win 2.
That's where I'm going with 2. So initially my gut was Thunder in 5, but I think just after kind of really thinking about it before coming even here, my prediction is going to be the Thunder in 6.
I want it to go 7. Obviously, I think every NBA fan wants this series to go 7 because the way these two teams play, it's going to be very, very fun. For the true basketball fans out there, although these are not the big market teams, this is a great thing for the NBA. This is a great thing for... I don't want to say a great thing for... I'm going to say it's a great thing for small markets. I'm not going to say it's a great thing for Kings fans.
Not yet.
Because not, because seeing who's playing is devastating. But it's a great thing for small markets. It just shows that And the fact that there's been a different NBA Finals winner for now, it's going to be the 7th year in a row. Unbelievable. So I love the matchup. Dude, the Thunder are a terrifying team to me. I used to be so delusional during the NBA season. And I was like, I remember this is when I was in Seattle and the Kings were playing the Thunder. I'm like, oh, the Kings got this. What was I thinking? That's how delusional we were when the season was going. But since we've been a month and a half removed from Kings basketball and you could just watch these other teams, like every single game, you're like, I don't see a world where the Kings could ever compete with a team like that.
Absolutely not. This is a once-in-a-lifetime, generational, greatest team in NBA history that we're talking about.
So fast.
We're talking about. And with all their picks they have left, dude, they're only going to get better. Their first-round pick this year is like a 6'6" point guard, and he was out for the entire year of the torn ACL and is going to be a rotational piece on any other team. Like, the Thunder are so deep for so long, and it is insane how good of a turnaround and their rebuild was. There's going to be no rebuild that will ever exist in sports history, period, like the Oklahoma City Thunder. And their rebuild isn't even done. That's even crazier.
This is like they have the blueprint. It's like they lock it up in like the Smithsonian, and you get Ben Stiller at the night at the museum, and you try to steal it. You try to steal the blueprint. That's what you try to do.
Well, I mean, you're like more like Tom Cruise though,
or Nicolas Cage. You call one of them to go and try and steal, because that is the most prized possession, and they figured it out. They figured out the blueprint of how to build a team, how to draft insanely well. Sam Presti's been doing this for 17 years. He's drafted the best talent in the NBA.
Period.
And he's not done.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not done.
Listen, I'll tell you one thing though, that if you ask any of those three guys, Tom Cruise, Ben Stiller, Nicolas Cage, to try and steal the blueprint, they're not going to do it. They're going to fail miserably, because the way that the process is for the Thunder of how they've done it is a one of one process. That's it. It's a one of one thing. And yeah, I mean, it's just insane. The Thunder could be the next great dynasty that we see in sports.
Like yeah. I mean, someone call Ethan Hawke, but I don't even think Ethan Hawke could steal this blueprint. No one could replicate it. I don't think it's what they're doing is unheard of. The average age of the Pacers is 25 years old. Caruso's the oldest guy on the team, and he's 30. And he's arguably one of the most important people on the team.
I know.
And he comes off the bench. Ryan Clark, the West is in trouble with the Thunder. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Tyrese Halliburton. I'm going to be completely honest, RT. This whole entire offseason, just because I'm a Kings fan and just because of how much Tyrese meant to me as a Kings fan when he was here, how much we bought his jerseys during the COVID year. We were repping Tyrese harder than ever. We loved him so much. He gets traded. I remember I was at work at the time, and I fell to the floor, and I was devastated because he was the guy that I thought was, and also Tyrese thought he was the guy that was going to help turn the wheels of this franchise. We trade him away, and he's just been doing great things ever since. And so that brings me to my point. During the offseason, I have been rooting against the Pacers. Not because I dislike Halliburton. I do not dislike. I love the guy. It just kills me inside to see how successful and how good he is, knowing that we could have had him. But yeah, in every single series, I was rooting for the opposite team of the Pacers. But I have a friend at Orange Theory who is from Indiana, and he's a big Pacers fan, and I kept telling him, I was like, and this is early on in the play, I'm like, the Pacers could make it to the finals. Like, I kept telling him that, and he was like, dude, I hope. Because the way they play, no other team in the East is playing with that pace, with that speed. And just seeing that Tyrese Halliburton is the engine behind it all, and he's a big reason behind their success. And it's truthfully, it's been very difficult for me to watch him be so good. It's hard for me. I remember at the Kings trivia night when Tyrese was doing the choke symbol and when he was doing all this stuff, like it makes me sick seeing him do that type of stuff because I'm like, it's actually disgusting.
It's nasty work.
It's actually nasty work. We're hosting a Kings trivia night while Tyrese Halliburton is having the best game of his life in a different jersey. Do you understand how demoralizing that was?
That is very demoralizing.
That's how I feel every single time I see the Pacers thrive because when he's on the floor playing as well as he is. But now on the contrary, he deserves this. I don't think he would have been the player that he is today if he was on our team. There would have had to been a massive, they would have had to, ship off Fox. Our team would have looked way different. Who knows what our team would have looked like if we've had Tyrese. But the Indiana Pacers made they built the best team for his play style. They found all of these guys, and I think it was meant to happen for his career, and I'm happy for him, but I am so, so desperately sad, devastated, in sorrow that he is not a King, because I'll say it one more time, he wanted to be here, and that's what makes it. If he asked out, sure, then I would not root for him. But he wanted to be here for the long term.
My God,
Cristo,
I
had to say it. It's been on my mind all summer long.
That is I almost shedded a tear just basically hearing that. But it's hard to. I generally will say this. I think the Pacers were this past year and this year when they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year and they made the NBA Finals this year. The Pacers are so deep. The Pacers are one of the healthiest teams we've seen in a playoff run for so long. And that's kind of why I told people hey, don't be surprised if the Pacers make the conference finals last year because they were the healthiest team in that side. And then you look again, they faced the Bucks without Damian Lillard. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they had some injury problems, with Darius Garland. Evan Mobley was kind of in and out of the lineup. So those two played a factor, right? And then they play New York, right? Do you think that New York is the healthiest team they faced all year? This was going to be their stopping point, but Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, Andrew Nembhard, the whole crew, Aaron Nesmith had an incredible... Aaron Nesmith, shout out to him, but he had an incredible series against the Knicks. Incredible. So I think you kind of have to give credit where credit is due, and you have to look at all the pieces that surround Tyrese Halliburton. These are players that have been through the ringer. They understand what it takes to win a championship. Pascal Siakam is an NBA champion as a second option on a team. He has done that. He's been there before, and they have done everything exactly right to build the right pieces around Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, so you have to give Indiana all the credit because what they've built, and now they're going to become a destination where they could even add more guys, like top tier talent. But with how deep they are, they don't even need that. And that brings me to my next question. Do you think the route for just building a team in general is by stacking stars, or do you think it's just building that foundation or building your identity and just filling out the roster with guys that fit that identity?
I think it's the second option, right? Yeah. Because you look at NBA history, you look at all the teams that have been successful teams. Obviously, there are outliers like the Lakers, because the Lakers, they did shine Shaq, and that was when they had three-peat. Kobe Bryant was a huge part of developing that. But I want to take examples like the Chicago Bulls. When the Chicago Bulls were one of the bottom teams and they drafted Michael Jordan, they drafted Scottie Pippen. They built players around them that were able to provide them to win championships. You look at the Golden State Warriors, right? When they drafted Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, all players that came up together. There's a lot of other examples. The OKC Thunder we're about to see.
Boston Celtics.
Boston, yes, that is true, but they did receive help from...
Yeah, they received a lot of help.
They received a lot of help
from
their
main guys.
Yeah, their main guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Sure, we can count that, but I will say that is the one I'm kind of like leaving off because the Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce trade did help them in that way.
Yeah.
So,
oh my God.
yeah, so, and they were still making playoffs when they got those picks. So it's like I kind of have to shove that to the side for that in that case because that's the reason why I'm like,
I don't want to give them credit. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
I don't want to give them credit. But those two teams, the Chicago Bulls and the Golden State Warriors, were teams that were built up from the ground up. And then you provide them with pieces that are veteran players, championship players. That I feel like is the recipe for success in today's NBA. And these two teams that we're seeing in the finals are following the exact same blueprint that the Bulls and Warriors did.
So the Bulls and the Warriors. So the Bulls had the original blueprint. Mm-hmm. We could even probably take a step further. It's probably Boston in the way beginning.
Boston, yeah, even in the
whatever.
Damn near beginning.
We were negative 50 years old at the time. But we'll start with the Bulls. They had the original blueprint. Then the Warriors, they took over that blueprint. But Sam Presti,
yeah,
he
do you want me to say it? I will say that he created an AI-generated blueprint of that.
Yeah, because he came up during the AI era, so he had AI fix that blueprint. But he's like, he was typing into ChatGPT. He's like, can you like steal the Chicago Bulls and Golden State Warriors blueprint, but like speed up the process? That's what he did, dude.
Like what?
With this core, I know we keep bouncing around to the Thunder, Pacers, whatever. But oh my God. So, okay, this brings me back to my next question. So I agree with you, by the way, about your statement about not building around stars. We have too many stars on our team. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. We have way too many stars on our team. Do you want, like, how soon do you want to see him go? And if you could have one to stay out of Sabonis, that was another star we had.
Yeah.
Sabonis, Levine, and DeRozan. Who are you keeping?
Ultimately, I'm a Sabonis guy. That's the one guy I want to keep because that's a dude that plays his heart and it plays his ass off. Right?
He's not a number one option, but he's
so valuable to our team.
So valuable to our team.
So valuable.
And it's like if you want to have any type of like continuity, you got to keep him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, do you think there's a way to move off of both of DeRozan and Levine? But
so Levine's contract is so hard to move off of. It is probably
what do we have to add on to it to get someone to take it?
I feel like multiple first round picks is what will most likely be done, and then some player that's gonna fit the contract. But like, how many players match Levine's contract? Not a lot. So the next step is like, if Levine doesn't want to be here, then a buyout becomes an option. And then the buyout is just like, I don't even know if we want to do a buyout with Zach Levine.
Okay, I think there's a world where we could figure out just Sabonis and Levine. I think them two could figure out. I'm cool with it for this year, this upcoming year. I say we move off of DeRozan. We have Sabonis and Levine as like, the stars, and then we fill them out with Keon, Monk, and then hopefully we bring in some help because we need it. But I think you just gotta just want one more year, and then it's gotta, if nothing comes from it, you gotta take these years aside because look what's going on in the West. We were saying 10 to 13 teams could potentially be better than us. Unless we have like just this insane run, I don't see a way where we could do any damage in the West. So like, it might be time.
As much as we don't want to do that again, I am.
We literally just got out of it, and now we're back.
Now we're back. So it's like we just got out of it. But I do agree with Christo. I do think this is the right direction for the Kings to be able to be like, hey, we can finally get out of this rut and do a rebuild the right way. Not just a way.
Just one more year just with these guys.
Yeah, and I'd say just one more. I'd say like with.
Why don't they rip the Band-Aid off now though? Like why do you think they don't do it?
Well, that's the problem. I don't know the market for Sabonis. We don't know the market.
They're saying it's low. They're saying
That's what I'm saying, because I don't think it's going to fit the standard of what Scott Perry thinks those players are. I just feel like one, if we trade those players off, then there's a possibility that we could get lowballed, you know?
It's so crazy to me though, because they're saying that Sabonis, Levine, and DeRozan's value is not, well, obviously Levine. Let's leave him out of it. Sabonis and DeRozan's value is not high, right? But they both had great years. So if we keep them again, all three of them, we keep them again, and they do great individually, is the value magically going to like go up?
No.
So then it's like, why don't you just rip the Band-Aid off now? Because like if they feel like this is not the blueprint, why don't you just do it now?
This is the Kang gang.
This is just Kang talk. This is Kang talk. You're seeing it right here.
Yeah, this is not even part of our script today, but
it's just like, you know what I mean though? It's like,
I get what you mean. The reason
is it because Vivek wants? Does it go back to Vivek again? Because if that's the case, I'm going to break the TV.
No, I don't think it goes back to Vivek. I really don't. It really comes down to, again, and I think we should really, really reiterate this. What is DeRozan's price? What is Sabonis's price? We're going to leave Levine out of this because I think Levine is pretty much untradeable with how his contract is. But the price tag on both of those players, because Sabonis is going to be close to 30 next year. DeRozan is 36, and Levine just turned 30. These are older stars. These are older dudes. So do teams want that older star to mentor a younger star to really be like the person that passes the torch over to them for that next team? Probably not. They want their numbers. They're looking for those guys, DeRozan, Sabonis, Levine, specifically Sabonis and Levine. Those guys are looking for all-star appearances. Those guys are looking for all NBA appearances. Those guys are looking to make incentives based off their contract. And to be frankly honest, do I think they're going to do it if one of those three goes to like the Knicks? Probably not. Do I think one of those three do it on another bad team? Probably not. So you got to think about this as an opportunity where, especially Levine and Sabonis, this is their opportunity to be the guy on the team. And if they do extremely well, then they receive all NBA recognition, and that helps them with incentives. All of it comes down to the contract and the money that they're making and all of the incentives that come from their contract. So my answer is that more so they would probably want to stay in Sacramento because they are players that most likely, if they were on a championship team, would be most likely third or fourth options at best.
Yeah, it's just quite the situation that the Kings are in. It is not a fun situation to be in.
Oh, it sucks.
I'm sure being in that general manager's office is not fun because they're probably trying to weigh out every single option. They probably had like a more professional conversation of what we were just talking about. like what are the way? Like, how do we get out of this? Like, what do we do? But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, out of our control, we will always support the team. It's just not having a clear vision. Like, as a fan base, we're not having a clear vision, and that's what Fox wanted, was the vision, and now that's what Sabonis wants. I think everyone just doesn't understand it. I think that's the biggest thing. And the other thing that I thought about was it's a copycat league. You know, when Boston won, that was like, we keep using the word blueprint because it makes sense.
It's the truth.
It's the truth. So like, they were technically the blueprint last year, right? So then like, okay, you know, Phoenix was like, okay, Bradley Beal, Booker, Durant. Okay, that's our big three because, you know, they had, you know, their big four or whatever. The Kings are okay. We got De'Aaron, we got DeRozan, we got Sabonis, we got who am I missing? Keegan. Like that was their, you know,
Malik Monk. That's a
big group, right?
Yeah.
And then like all these other teams had their big groups, and that was the copycat way of getting there. And now look who made it out this time. The deep teams, the young teams. So now it's like, do the Kings try to follow the new blueprint of, okay, we've got to just wipe out our stars and just get young and get, you know, these gritty guys that are all like playing for recognition in the league, like how the Thunder are and how the Pacers are, like to show like that they deserve to be in the league? do we move away from all of our stars, or do they like, you know what? These guys have no trade value. We might as well just keep them, and it is what it is. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
But that's like the flow of the league. It's like they just copy the next winner.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And now everyone's going to try and replicate what the Pacers and the Thunder are doing because clearly it's successful.
Yeah, and like you got to look at some of the other teams that have these older stars too. Every team is going to have a different direction, but it seems like the way that's working right now is exactly what the Thunder and Pacers are doing. And to me, I feel like the Kings need to get a head start on some of these teams that are a lot older. Like the Clippers are a very old team. The Warriors are a very old team. Phoenix Suns, I don't know what they're going to be doing, right? So
they're trying so hard to move Durant.
They're trying so hard to move Durant because they know that they understand the blueprint. They know what's going to happen because Devin Booker is almost going to be 30 years old as well. So I mean, it
just seems like we're like the stars of the NBA, like the household names. They're just not as valuable as they once were. I think that's just what it is league wide, and obviously the Kings are a huge representation of that with, three guys that every fan is like, how is there no value for these guys? But then when you really dive deep and like their age and like how old they are and like, it's just, that's just not the recipe anymore, which is crazy. It's like you need at least one, but then you can't, Sacramento life.
It is the Sacramento life.
RT. So back to the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton. People were saying he got snubbed for the Eastern Conference player or MVP. I personally thought it was deserving to Siakam. That was my guess going in, like before the voting and before everything even happened. My reasoning was because I think Siakam was extremely consistent. He had multiple 30-point games, 20-point games. Although he isn't necessarily the type of player that Tyrese is, like getting others involved. Without him, I don't think the Pacers would have ever been in the position that they are now. Mm-hmm. Even though Tyrese is the one that like he's the way, like if without Tyrese, the Pacers don't play that style of basketball. But with that style of basketball and what Siakam was doing on the offensive floor, like there's no way, I don't think they would have won. Like you take Siakam off of that team, I don't think they would have, But
yeah, that's fair.
I just really think Siakam deserved it. I really do.
And this is where I am going to have to disagree with you.
Do it. Tell me why.
Because I think Tyrese Halliburton has been the engine for that Indiana Pacers team, especially since he joined that team. Obviously, injuries in 2022-23 season, they were top of the East. They were a top 8 team in the East. Tyrese Halliburton suffers injuries. A lot of injuries happen. They fall out. They do really well. They become one of the more surprising teams. This is last year. They trade for Pascal Siakam. Tyrese Halliburton becomes this big-time player that really steps up in big-time moments. This year in particular, Tyrese Halliburton has stepped up in 3 of the biggest moments in the playoffs. And particularly, he stepped up in the biggest moments of this series. Tyrese Halliburton had a triple-double in Game 3 with 0 turnovers. Yes, you can argue that Game 5 was kind of a bad game where he most likely...
Kind of?
Yeah, no, very much a bad game. Because he wasn't aggressive enough.
Yeah, but okay.
He wasn't aggressive enough.
But that's his thing.
That's the thing. It's his one weakness.
That is his one weakness, is that he will be very, very good and then he will disappear. Not to the level of Anthony Davis. We don't want to get it twisted. We don't ever want to get it twisted. But Tyrese is a known thing. All Kings fans and all Indiana Pacers fans know this about him. He will disappear at some moments. And when he is not looking to score and when he is not aggressive, I think that's what killed his shots to getting the MVP. I really do, because and I think that's probably, if you ask the voters, that's probably why they're like, Siakam never slips up at all. What you're going to get out of him every single game. With Tyrese, it's like you have to like enforce that in him to be a scorer, to be aggressive. Like they were saying that Reggie Miller was talking to him Tyrese was seeking out, like, when he was asking Sabrina Ionescu,
he was asking Joel Embiid,
when do I become a scorer and when do I become a passer? And he's like, obviously he's still young. That's why, and he's way ahead of schedule. But like for this particular series, Siakam never slipped, and I don't see him slipping at all.
I'm going to counter your argument now.
Do it.
Because Tyrese Halliburton has hit clutch. If Tyrese didn't hit that game 1 to tie it in overtime, the Knicks win this series, period. I think that is the easiest answer that you can tell. Tyrese Halliburton, when the lights are the brightest, when the ball is in his hands, Pascal Siakam's not the one that is getting the ball in the last couple minutes of a game. That is Tyrese Halliburton's team. That is Tyrese Halliburton's ball. That is Tyrese Halliburton's time to shine and be the example of what this team is, of a grit and a clutch player. Tyrese Halliburton I think Tyrese Halliburton has earned, especially during this playoff run, he has earned that top 5 of one of the more clutch players in the league.
He has been extremely clutch. I will definitely agree with you on that.
And I think the thing is, though, he gets his teammates involved. I think what really is more to it is that Tyrese Halliburton has much of a more dimensional play style than Pascal Siakam does. Because Siakam, he is a good scorer. He's a great scorer. He was fantastic. There were multiple times where he had multiple 30-point games in the series. But the impact of Tyrese Halliburton as a playmaker, as a contributor, scorer, shot creator, those things outweigh more than Pascal Siakam in that series, in my opinion. And that's why I felt like Tyrese Halliburton should have been the Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
I'm going to counter you one more time because it's fun. Okay, I obviously agree with you on the clutch shots and everything. Like, Tyrese will definitely come alive in like the end of games, which is obviously very important. But Pascal Siakam, Tyrese wouldn't even have those opportunities if Siakam wasn't performing the way he did for those 3 quarters. In like the first through the third quarter, Siakam single-handedly kept them in games, kept them with big leads because his scoring in the beginning of games, it was insane. He had like 16 points in the first quarter in one of the games. There was a game where it was like the Pacers were playing pretty bad in New York.
I think it was game 5.
I forget which one it was, but then Siakam scored like 26 points in the first half, literally single-handedly keeping them within arm's reach. So I think the reason why Halliburton was able to take over in the fourth was because Siakam helped keep him alive in the whole entire game leading up to that point. So that's why obviously, I will say this, it could have gone either way. I would have been happy with either way, but Siakam, I think it was well deserved.
All right, one final counter argument.
Add it to his accolades.
One final counter argument. There are times that in this series, and especially in previous playoff appearances, previous whatever you want to call it, Tyrese Halliburton, especially in that game 3, there was a moment. Game 4, excuse me, because New York won game 3. Because Tyrese had I always say that Tyrese had the triple double in game 3, but he didn't. He had it in game 4. The Knicks could have easily tied this series up 2-2 because they were playing super, super competitive. But you saw in that game 4 where Tyrese Halliburton was keeping his foot on the gas in terms of scoring, in terms of playmaking, get others involved. There are so many things that as a scorer he kept pretty much with Jalen Brunson throughout that first half, right? And really, really was.
Oh, yeah, that's when they were going back and forth.
Yeah, that was. And that to me is like what is more competitive. I don't think Pascal Siakam really is that scorer that can really match with a scorer, like just in terms of impact of like answering like a star player scoring the way that Tyrese Halliburton does. Because Tyrese Halliburton is a player that rises to the occasion when somebody is playing at also another high level too. Jalen Brunson's the great example of that. Jalen Brunson, when he's in the playoffs, he is such a fun player to watch. We can both of us, I can agree, he is super fun to watch. But if there's a player that can really match and respond to when a player is starting to heat up and really control the game, Tyrese Halliburton does exactly that.
Okay, well, I mean,
so there's no wrong answer here. I think both of them deserve it, but
Siakam did get it. But if it did go Tyrese's way, I don't think anyone would have complained. It is just very funny that Tyrese assumed he got it and he started walking up.
Oh yeah,
that was so
and then his
funny.
face changed immediately.
He's
after.
That was hilarious. That is an all-time NBA moment right there. But yeah, so we both think Thunder are winning. We both think the Kings are going to move off to DeRozan in the offseason. It's going to be interesting. Get your popcorn ready. Get it ready. We have next in 3 weeks from now, Kings Trivia, so please come if you can. It's going to be very, very fun. And hopefully in the next couple weeks, we will be having some pretty awesome guests. So stay tuned for that.
And if you are just scrolling on this channel, if you somehow are a Kings fan or just an NBA fan in general and want to know what in the heck is going on with the Sacramento Kings in the offseason, subscribe to our channel, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok. We'll be posting a lot of content this offseason because yes, we are in the off season, but the grind does not stop. This is where the road meets the rubber. What do we call this before we talked about it? We said something. We are just in the wee hours.
Oh, the wee hours. But we would be posting more, but there just hasn't been much Kings talk to address really. Mm-hmm. But I mean, after the playoffs and after the finals wrap up in mid to late June, then that's when the real off season starts. So that's when we'll actually be hopping on here a lot more, giving you up to date responses and content along the summer for all of you guys. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with us. We love you so much, and we are out of here. Hashtag wee hours. If you made it this far, hashtag wee hours.
Comment hashtag wee hours. And hashtag wee hours, baby. Wee hours 2025.
Wee!
It's like that Geico pig. Wee!